Hello everyone, my name is Opeyemi Onibon. Thank you for watching my research presentation. My research paper was based on the barriers to communication within organization. The goal of the research paper was to look at different companies, organization, and to see what communication barriers they struggle with, to see how those communication barriers affect them, and also to suggest solutions to be able to overcome these communication barriers. My research argument is based on the fact that communication is vital and important in an organization, is very important, such that the success of an organization depends on it. And because of that, it is important that organizations, irrespective of their size, irrespective of their status, look at those things, pay attention to those things that can hinder their growth and prevent them from achieving their highest potential. My research process was looking at things that other authors have reviewed, look at works that other scholars have done based on the same topic, based on the same issue. And so I found that I find out that there were five potential communication barriers, respectively: noise, selective perception, misperception, information overload, and cultural barriers. Those are the five that most organizations seems to encounter when it comes to organizational behavior. Even our textbook talks about it, made mention of those five. So just to share a little more about some of the communication barriers, with respect to cultural barriers to communication, from my research I discussed a study that was conducted in Bosnia, by some scholars who realized that most of the communication barriers in those states, because the research talks about how they had employees from different background, and the research shows that because of people's different background in the company, it was so hard for them to achieve successful communication. Another thing I would like to talk about is information overload. And with information overload, the study was conducted by three scholars on a telecommunication company, and the telecommunication company basically had employees to handle, customers on the phone. And because of the information overload, the employees had too much information to handle. They could not serve the customers, and so they had to go back and ask for help from their supervisors or their managers, just so that they can help the customers, just so that they can be efficient. And so those were the interesting things that I found. Also, for further research, I talked about the fact that most work have been focused on communication barriers within organizations, and we need to look at organizations. There's work that needs to be done on organizations that have actually been able to overcome communication barriers. I did not see any work discussing, how organizations have been able to overcome communication barriers. So for further research, those are my suggestions. And finally, the best way to overcome communication barriers that I talk about in my paper is to practice good communication skills. And those good communication skills were pretty much listening, writing, having good listening skills, having good writing skills, having good presentation skills. And so if those are practiced by employees, and just not just employees but even managers and everybody in the organization, is going to be a good help for organizations to overcome those communication barriers. Of course, to every communication barrier, there's a solution. With noise, for example, I talked about the fact that organizations have to remove noise as much as possible. With information overload, for instance, the research suggests that we reduce unnecessary information when we communicate to people within organization. With misperception and selective perception, it has to do with active listening and just asking questions when we do not understand. So those are probably the most major things we have to do, to be able to make sure we are communicating well within an organization, and making sure that we do not hinder communication or hinder ourselves to communicate properly. Finally, I would say that communications barriers cannot be totally eradicated. It's not something you can eliminate, from your organization, because, for example, with communication barriers coming from multicultural diversity, if you want to eliminate that, unless you do not employ people coming from different backgrounds, which is not possible. So this was a great research paper. I learned a lot from it. Thank you for watching.